Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. My guest today is DeNail Sparks. DeNail is with Every Nations Ministry. And DeNail, you are a wonderful fountain of wisdom and knowledge. So thank you once again.
Thanks, Aaron.
Today. So tell us a little bit before we get started on this fourth episode regarding outliers in your support raising meetings. Tell us a little bit. How did you get kind of hooked in with Every Nation? Like what once you realize, okay, this isn't just something I'm going to do a little bit, but I'm going to go full time. Like what went on in your process with that?
You know, it's interesting. Every Nation is actually the ministry I heard the gospel through. And so there was an immediate affinity that I had towards the missionaries that went through this process.
Sure.
The gentleman who led me to the Lord let me into his inside world and talked about his ministry partners, talked about partnership, a completely foreign concept to me. And as I began to grow in college, I was wrestling with the conviction of going full time, but I still resisted the idea of building a partnership team. I wouldn't get hired by a church or organization,
right?
Become a preacher and a minister through them. And fortunately, or unfortunately, I'll say fortunately, everybody that I talked to said no. The best way to enter the ministry, in your case, is to build what's called a partnership team. Now, I resisted that for years. I remained a student. And
many people do, right?
Yeah, got my degree, which I was glad I didn't have to begin. That's one thing I loved about our ministries. They didn't rush me into ministry, quit college and go. They said, don't get your education, but just make your plan. And so two things happened. One, as I inquired further about what it took to go on a full-time ministry, I was actually not encouraged. I was discouraged because a lot of people around me, though they were excellent witnesses of God's power, they were horrible witnesses of provision. And, and I told myself, I want to get married. I want to own a home. I want to buy a car. I don't want to have to, pass cars along, et cetera. And I don't want to denigrate anybody that does. I'm just saying that the standard of life that was in the ministry I was becoming a part of was pretty low.
You didn't feel a call to abject poverty, but you did feel a call to ministry. Right. And you were trying to figure out where they intersected.
And poverty, unfortunately, at the time was being preached in our ministry. Hey, this is suffering for the Lord. And I said, you know what, there's other ways to suffer for God. And I'm not saying that that's excluded, but we're making it a part of our doctrine. We're making it as a crucible. And I said, no, I'm not for that. And so at least I was encouraged to go through a training. And when I went through the training, it was there that I began to see that was an exception, not the rule. Poverty was an exception, not the rule, especially in the contiguous U.S. And so people they were living low because they chose to live low, not because they had to live low.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and again, you've heard me talk before. I'm not talking about, as a missionary, I need to drive a Mercedes, live in the best neighborhood.
No.
We provide for my wife and children,
Yeah. In fact, let me just say that really quickly to be clear. Yeah. SRS never has the prosperity, health, and wealth gospel.
Right.
That is not our belief at all. We simply want you to have enough so that your vision moves forward in such a way that both your family and ministry can thrive. Not super rich, not poverty, but enough so that your family and ministry, not either or, but so that both can thrive for the kingdom.
Thank you. Well put, and I'm in full agreement. But that's what got me into the ministry is God's calling, but also the determination not to fall short of that call, which included maximizing my ministry.
Awesome.
I believe that's part of the call.
Awesome. Well, as we dig in here for the fourth time on our five topic series here on outliers, I know that we wanted to just touch on a really uncomfortable situation, and I know I have a couple stories like this, and I'm sure you do as well. So let's just go ahead and let's just call it flipping the tables, because in reality, I have sat down in a meeting that I believe I clearly set up for support raising. I clearly set up to tell them about the vision, the mission, the budget goals, and how God's changing lives. Like I know for a fact I set up the meeting with the right words, explained what the intent and purpose of the meeting was, and then I get in the meeting, and all of a sudden, the person that agreed to the meeting, they agreed to the meeting, but they had their own agenda. You've had that happen too, haven't you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, go ahead
It's
and
it's
unwrap an example or tell a
sure.
story that explains it.
I've had a series of them, and one of them was actually close to home. Uh, I met with a couple who were a fine couple. They still are, and I'll tell you the punchline. They're still partners with me to this day. It's been over 20 years.
Awesome. Okay.
But when I met with them, they were in sales. They were selling medicine and herbs, etc. And I did not know that until I met with them. And basically, because he knew I was an athlete or was a former athlete at the time, he said, "Look, will you have some inroads to these universities? Look, I know athletes always need supplements, etc. How about if we join your team, you join our team, and we
Mm,
mutually help each other? That
mm,
way, as our ministry grows and our business grows, we'll just increase our partnership with you." And
mm,
and and the numbers worked out, and I was like, "Oh, this makes sense." But I also knew that the whole purpose of our partnership would get lost.
mm-hmm.
It would turn into a business venture versus a ministry opportunity. And so in the meeting, I cordially, kindly turned him down, and it became briefly contentious.
Mm,
And I could see the frustration because they saw the lucrative angle, because a lot of the athletes that I worked with at the time went on to go into the NFL or to the
sure.
Olympics, and so all you needed was one of them to hold up this little, advertisement and help this business out, and I knew that was possible, but I said, you know what, that's not what God has called me to do. And one explanation I gave said, if you really want to fail, use me. If you really want your business to fall apart, take advantage of the opportunities I give you.
Mm,
Because it's not a part of my calling, I'm pretty sure the Lord won't be in it. And
mm,
so I'm going to help you by not helping you.
yeah.
I'm going to bless you, but not being a part of this opportunity. If God's going to open a door for you in this direction, I know it's not going to be me. And
Mm,
so I just shared it in good conscience because I minister to these athletes also. I cannot sell to them something in the place of ministry that is
yes.
not what God's called me to do.
Yes, because
So
it adulterates your message. It
that's
corrupts
right.
your point for being with them. It degrades the power of the gospel when you're bringing in, and oh, by the way, if you act now, I can also sell this. And all of a sudden, people go, oh,
That's
that,
right.
that's why he's talking to me about this Jesus.
That's exactly right. And part of me, and this is where the relationship kicked in, I was a little offended because I made it very clear why I wanted to meet them, why I wanted
Mhm.
to talk with them, what I wanted to invite them to. But they did not make it clear to me why they accepted the invitation.
Yeah.
And so, I had to uh, uh, tamp down even my own emotions because
Yes.
I was feeling used,
Yes.
and I did not want that to be the point of our relationship.
I'm glad
And
I'm not alone in that, because
oh
I
yeah,
remember feeling pretty hot-headed a couple of times
oh,
when I realized somebody was flipping the tables on me.
what it helped me to do was be even more clear when I called friends and family and even strangers to be
Hmm.
a part of my team.
Hmm.
Here's why we're meeting. Here's what I'd like to do. I want to share with you the vision that I have, the calling that I have, the ministry I have, and I want to share with you the opportunities God's giving both me and possibly yourself to be a part of it. prayerfully, financially, etc. And so I'll say many of those things up front so that when we do meet, it's no surprise.
Yes.
Me
Yes.
asking them to be a part of what they're doing is no surprise. And
Honestly,
hopefully,
that's one of the things I hope people take from this particular podcast is you do need to have clarity as to why you are getting together. That doesn't mean they're always going to get it. That doesn't mean that
that's right.
it's not impossible for them to show up with their own agenda. But if you can somewhat, have a great clarity as to why you're getting together, you have a great script like what we teach in the SRS boot camps, it can often help you avoid ending up in situations like this. Or they might even go, well, that's great. You can tell me about your thing and I'll tell you about mine. And then, okay, I'm going to clarify when we sit down. Please tell me about yours, but I want to be clear. You're inviting me into like a business type thing, and that's okay. I'm not inviting you into a business thing. I'm going to be sharing with you about a ministry that I would be inviting you to be a part of, but there's no say
Right.
involved in what I'm doing. So it could potentially help you kind of avoid that sticky situation.
It really does, and it shows them your heart in the matter. Maybe there is a lucrative opportunity here. Maybe this is a money-making opportunity. And for all of our missionaries out there, if you're doing, and you already said it before, Aaron, but if you're doing this for the money, you're probably in the wrong profession.
Yes.
There's other things to earn in this profession other than money.
Yeah.
And yes, we want you provided, want you fully funded, want your ministry and life maximized. But if money's your concern, or your ultimate concern, then that's something to bring before the Lord. And I say that because those opportunities to take other business ventures while you should be building your partnership team will be heavy and hard to resist temptations if money is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We share with all of our missionaries, look, you need to have your finances in order before you come into this process.
Yeah.
You need to understand your debt load, your savings. You need to know and have some kind of financial literacy regarding your financial status before you enter into this process, because you can get tripped up. Instead of building your team, you build your business.
Yeah.
Instead of raising friends, you raise funds. And there's a timer on all of those that'll blow up. And we share this with our missionaries as a warning that you need to check your heart now, because if this is about the money, trust me, the enemy that we all have will find a way to tantalize and entice you out of ministry to do something else for the money. And that's the last thing that we want. And so that's why, check your calling.
Yeah.
Check your heart, because those things will be temptations to you.
I want to interrupt this podcast for a brief heads up. This is Steve Shadrach, author of The God Ask. Support Raising Solutions is running a contest to win an SRS swag pack. Go check out our past podcast episode, number 29, to get details on how you can get involved and possibly win some fun Support Raising Solutions swag, including a $100 gift card.
Just a brief sidebar here to our listeners. Perhaps you've wanted to recruit someone to your staff team but aren't sure how to broach the topic of support raising without either scaring them away or shoving a full copy of the God Ask book into their hands. So wouldn't you like an 8-page booklet that might calm their fears and quickly unpack the basic how-tos from a practical and biblical perspective? We actually have a booklet like that. It's called The 5 Keys to Support Raising, and you can get these booklets in English or in Spanish at cmmpress.org. You'll receive an additional 10% discount if you use the code SRS Podcast.
I've had people be a little more subversive about it, but when they might even go so far as to say, hey, I will join your team if, like right there, there's a string. They're like, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. We're all going to win. Ooh, yeah, that kind of, I kind of feel my blood rushing just even saying that out loud, because how do you respond?
Here's one. Jesus said it to those who hung him on the cross. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And I don't mean that in a condescending way or some self-righteous way. Sometimes they just really don't know the ramifications of what they're asking. And I'll even give a nuance to it. There's even pastors that I know who say, look, I'll support you if you come preach in my church and you preach this often in my church, I will be a strong partner with you if you lead my youth Bible study, if you do this ministry on campus for me. Now, that's not as overt as a business venture, but if it's not a part of my calling, if it's something that I can't leave with no strings attached, you know what, then I have to say no. Now, this is where my conviction about what God's called me to do has to be manifest. And it's manifest many times because it's tested. And I have to stand before God and stand before my own mirror and go, Lord, is this really what you want me to do? Because there's going to be other people who want me to take a shortcut, want me to find, quote unquote, a better way. And I'll say this. I have a long list of good friends and faithful missionaries who are no longer in the ministry today because they found, quote unquote, the better way. Their families are shipwrecked. Their ministry lives are shipwrecked. Their credibility is shipwrecked because they chose to take a path that wasn't a part of God's plan, wasn't part of God's calling, because they were searching after money and not ministry. Now, I'm being very blunt with that, but my point is that you have to have a conviction, a growing conviction that what you're doing is of the Lord, not just for money opportunities. Now, I say that again because, you know, like a fish to a hook with great bait on it, sometimes you only get one chance to bite, and sometimes when you bite on it, it was the wrong opportunity. And it's hard to be let go. It's hard to get off that hook. So I tell our missionaries before you even start, this better not be somebody else's idea. This better not be, quote unquote, your last opportunity. This needs to be your idea. This needs to be a response to God's calling upon your life. And I say that because you're going to get tempted. You're going to get offered to do other things. You're going to get offered to join business ventures, etc. Multi-level marketing, selling stuff on the side, business ventures, whatever it might be. Each ministry has its own standard of what that looks like, but you need to have the conviction ultimately. If I had to choose one or the other, what would it be?
Yeah.
And so my response when I am offered those things is I refer back to my testimony. When God spoke to me about becoming a minister, this is what he's called me to do. And what you're asking me to do would be a distraction from my calling. So in order to honor God, I must pass. And then their typical response is, no, this will help you fulfill your call. This will help you honor God. And if they don't take the first answer, I say, you know what, I will honestly pray about it. I'll ask God if this is included. And I'll come back to them. And 100% of the time, it's always, you know what, I prayed about it. I really do believe that what you're doing is going to be effective and powerful and lead others into the life that God wants them to have. But God's let me know through my prayer with him that this is not for me. This is not the opportunity for me. And especially when I'm calm about it, when I have earnestly prayed about it. Sometimes I already know. But most of the time they back off of it. They really do. Now, when they blindside me, depending upon the kind of relationship I have with them, you know, for instance, they called me or I called them. Hey, DeNail, let's have dinner. Man, we love you. Let's go out. Let's have coffee. And then, you know, 5 minutes into the conversation, it's, hey, there's this great plan. And I'll even ask, hey, is this the reason why you agreed to meet with me? Is this the reason why you asked me out? 9 times out of 10, the answer is going to be ultimately yes. Because if it's no, then I said, look, then let's skip this. Let's skip this portion.
Right.
But if they say yes, you know, yes, this is the reason why. And I said, you know what? Before you go any further, you know, and I might unpackage, you know, when I call, this is what I asked for. This is what I was looking to do. And because my time is short, I won't have time to cover plan B. I need to cover plan A, which is the reason why we're meeting.
Yes.
And so if we can't cover plan A, you know what? I love you. I care for you deeply. I wish you the best in your venture, but I can tell you now, I won't be able to take this on. And I've actually told some friends, I said, ethically, I can't. It's a great opportunity. I won't denigrate your opportunity, but ethically, based upon the conviction God's given me, I can't. And
Yes.
I've lost some friends over that answer, but I'm okay with that because on a side note, I know I'm rambling a little bit here. So I got to wake up tomorrow, and I'm going to look in the mirror, and I'm going to see my own eyes. And I want to make sure that the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing has been unadulterated by business ventures, by these
Yep. Yep. I've had people argue it with me, and so I guess I agree with everything you just said. But I encourage the listener, know what you would say, because the reality is you might have somebody who challenges you on it. In fact, I had a pastor argue it with me via a family member, but essentially said, well, Aaron's trying to help ministry leaders. What's going to help them more if we take care of their spirit, but also take care of their pocketbook? And if he can just learn to sell these magnets, because they had some sort of magnet type thing, like magnets in the mattress and, water and all sorts of magnets. So if he could take care of their body and their mind, that's what he really should be doing. And so my family member who initially came at me and I said no, well, he basically ended up explaining to me that this pastor was pastoring a small church and selling these magnets to to keep his income, and he's telling everybody in church. And quite honestly, I believe he became probably a bigger proponent of the gospel of that magnet business than he was the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
So my family member basically got coached up to go back at me from a pastor to really try and get me to buy this product and then sell this product and use my platform or my influence, if what you will, by using these magnets. So with that being said, this podcast today is brought to you by the No, just kidding. That's not true at all. We wouldn't be opposed to having some sort of MPD focused a commercial on an SRS podcast at some point, but that's not really our point here. That's not what we're trying to do. So, but the point is this: you need to understand why you don't want to sell stuff, why that's a distraction from the ministry you're called to do, and why, if you find yourself in a support raising meeting where somebody's trying to flip the tables on you, why you need to give a clear and compelling and reasonable no, even if it means that's the end of the meeting.
You might describe this differently. I'll tell people what I say in the context of the description is that the partnership development lifestyle is actually what some people describe as a relational funding model. And so what sparks and brings life to this process is the relationship. But many people confuse what we do, Aaron, as a fundraising model or as a sales model. And when you confuse it with sales, then you make the lifestyle that so many of our missionaries live equivalent to every other pyramid scheme, business opportunity or venture, online marketing, network marketing process. And it's far from the same thing. There may be some similar beats, getting to know someone, building rapport, asking open-ended questions. Those are the essence points of relationship, but they are not what will sustain you in the long run when it comes to the integrity of what you do. There's nothing wrong with sales. There's nothing wrong with certain forms of network marketing, but when you try and blend that with ministry, you undermine one or the other. And that's what we get at with so many of our missionaries, because if many of them that engage in the sales and network marketing, they're looking for money, not relationships. They're looking for finances and not ministry futures. And we tell them, look, you need to choose. You know what? And because the reality is, as Christians and as people in this process, there are times when, things are tight. Finances are tight. Circumstances happen. Things change. That happens. But that does not mean it changes your calling. It doesn't mean it changes your conviction. It really shouldn't. It doesn't mean it changes your lifestyle. It means you make some adjustments. And most of them are short-term adjustments anyway, because this too will pass. That moment will pass. But we tell them, so look, build for the long haul, build for the long run. This This is a lifestyle issue, not simply a business opportunity in the moment.
Right. And for any lack of clarity for anybody that's wondering, we frequently say around SRS, we are hopefully teaching you to invite people to be a part of the Great Commission.
That's right.
Never want you to confuse that with you're being told to sell anything. There is no widget involved here. There is not a product you are selling. You are simply inviting people to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. It's more like an invitation to a birthday party than it is selling a widget.
That's right. Very good. Very good. The invitation is key. And anything that clouds that invitation, anything that muddles that invitation can be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just continue on with the response.
Yes.
I also try to do my best to respond graciously. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know if they're helping or hurting.
Yeah, you don't stand up and storm out all offended.
Right. Because I'm still in a relationship mode. And like I said, many of the people who I met with initially who didn't understand what I was doing, who offered other opportunities, most of the time they offer because they said, look, I don't want you to suffer. I want to help you. I want your ministry to grow. I want your family to gain finances. Their heart was in the right place for most of them, but their method contradicted what they said they were trying to help, and many of them don't know that. Mm-hmm. So many of these individuals who presented to me an alternative opportunity, they're partners with me to this day with no strings attached. But it took time, it took relationship, to an explanation to explain, here's what I'm looking for.
Yes.
Here's what I need. And so my question, my ask, had more to do with what has God put on your heart to do to forward the cause of Christ on the earth by being a part of the Great Commission, compared to what have you been called to do to forward your business on the earth, to forward your family, etc. And I said, those are two separate things. And so as we engage in conversation, sometimes repeatedly, then the dime would drop, then the light would come on, and many of them would conclude, oh, what I'm doing really wouldn't help you, really isn't what you're asking for.
Right.
Or I've actually seen God change their heart. They gave up. They said, no, okay, I get it. All right. Or the Holy Spirit is talking to me about, hey, I really shouldn't be offering this to you. No, this really isn't what would help you.
Good point.
How can I help you?
And if they don't see the light, you still kindly finish the conversation and you leave, and you don't have to burn the bridge, but you don't have to waste time continuing down it either.
You don't. My favorite are when God changes their heart, says, okay, I get it. This won't help you.
Yeah, that's
how can I help you? So,
that's our preferred method. And I'll say it's not always the way it's going to end. I mean, that can be our goal. And I've definitely had one or two that I realized they're not here. Like I'm an agenda. I need to move on, and I need to continue to walk in the Spirit and be healthy and not ruin the relationship and storm out and all that stuff. But I felt it's one of those things where I felt a little lied to because they flipped the tables, but also, man, was I glad that I didn't give in to something that would have been a distraction from the vision he'd given me.
That's right.
Well, DeNail, thank you again for your time this week.
Thank you, Aaron.
I know that we have one more. So everybody that's listening to this, DeNail and I are doing a 5-part series on things that come up that are outliers in your support raising presentation. This is just number 4 of 5. So if you missed the last 3, you're missing out on some good content. Go back and listen to those. Meanwhile, join us next week for part 5. God bless. Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisingsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcast from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.